Hey guys, it's Ash here doing another vid. This is my first time using this software, so give me some slack here if I mess up. This video is about the Philippines being one of the richest countries in the world, and it's the story of the Vatican, Ferdinand Marcos, and how Ferdinand Marcos made his fortune, which a lot of people don't realize was early on in his career. This is a Facebook post that I found interesting about some background with the Philippines and how the Vatican in 1934, you can see here under Pope Pius XII, the Vatican negotiated with the member of the Filipino royal family, the Christian Tallano clan in Maharlika. An agreement was reached that 640,000 metric tons of the Tallano gold would be lent to the Pope or the Vatican. This was part of that gold accumulated by the Southeast Asian Srivijayan Majapahit Empire during its glorious reign of 900 years. In 1939, two members of the Tallano family and Roman Catholic priest Jose Antonio Diaz brought the gold from Kota Kinabalu, Sabah, to the Vatican. After doing this, Diaz went back to the Maharlika and resided in Cabanatuan City. After World War II, he facilitated the safe return of the 640,000 metric tons of gold from the Vatican to the Maharlika. Manuel Acuna Rojas, relative of the Acuna Tijian Tallano clan, then a congressman and Bishop Enrique Sobrapena Sr., in the presence of attorney Lorenzo Tanada, received the gold in Manila. There is good reason to believe, even from further along in this account, that the young attorney Ferdinand Marcos was involved in the return of the gold. Certainly, by all accounts we have seen, JT was Ferdinand Marcos and Diaz, who shared in the enormous 30% commission, that is 192,000 metric tons of gold worth around $4 trillion today. That was in 2006. It's worth much more now, for handling the transaction. A lease agreement was made between the Tallano clan and the Maharlika government. A total of 640,000 metric tons of gold was deposited in the newly installed central bank of the Maharlika to comply with its requirement for gold reserve. Under the terms of the contract, the central bank became the holder of that gold. That lease agreement will expire in the year 2005. The Tallano Foundation has given notice of the termination of this 50-year lease following the additional 5-year discretionary period on December 31st, 2005, but remains unable to obtain an inventory of this asset, even though the central bank, now Banco Central Filipinas, is no longer entitled to hold the gold. Having gained the trust and confidence of Diaz, the Tallano clan made him the main negotiator and trustee of their gold. Diaz in turn hired the services of attorney Ferdinand Marcos, then a recommended brilliant young lawyer, having attained notoriety when he successfully defended himself in the Nalundasan case in 1939. The Tallano clan paid commission to Diaz and attorney Marcos in gold, 30% from the principal of 640,000 metric tons. In 1949, the two richest men in the world were Jose Antonio Diaz and attorney Ferdinand Marcos. Between the two of them, they legitimately earned and owned 192,000 metric tons of gold from the Tallano clan and Maharlika governments. Marcos withdrew their share of the gold from the central bank and minted it RPCB sometime later. Diaz and Marcos brought their gold to Switzerland and the Swiss Bank Corporation in Zurich. The remaining 400,000 tons of Tallano gold, Prince Lakan Acuna Maclea Tallano, son of Raja Solomon Tajian and grandson of Chijian, is in the third-floor basement of the central bank minting plant in East Avenue, Quezon City. There are 950,000 metric tons of gold declared missing in the International Court of Justice, picked up by Yamashita from its European ally Hitler. Let's review some numbers at this point because there are certainly some unexplained losses. The Tallano gold started at 720,000 tons. 640,000 tons were transported to the Vatican and back, leaving 80,000 tons unaccounted from the outset. Out of 640,000 tons, 192,000 tons were paid in commission, which should leave 448,000 tons, but somehow that number has become 400,000 tons, leaving another 48,000 tons unaccounted for. Following this story, there are 128,000 tons, 80,000 plus 48,000 tons of gold, which somehow slipped through the cracks. In addition to 192,000 earned a commission, whereabouts unknown, out of the remaining 400,000 tons, we do not know how much remains. We know there was an effort to do a major disappearing act when the old central bank morphed into the new Central Filipinas, but a recent decision of the Supreme Court has upheld that BSP is responsible for the liabilities of the old central bank. The point is, a complete accounting should show where all of the original 720,000 tons went, not to mention estimated 1.2 million tons of the Yamashita treasure, combined German and Japanese plunder, identified above. That is very nearly 2 million tons of gold, worth more than 38 trillion at today's price, and that's in 2006. So that's just one thing I wanted you to see. And now, if we go to this New York Post article, which is dated October 20th, 2019, we see that this gentleman, Rogelio Roger Rojas, okay, now it sounds to me that he's connected with the Rojas family, who was, we see back in the Vatican day, was involved with the gold then. So is this person now connected to that family? I think so. So in 1971, this gentleman was in the Philippines, and he was in here we'll see, a Filipino locksmith discovered the legendary loot of a Japanese World War II general, including a 3-foot-tall golden Buddha, only to be robbed by his country's dictator, launching a decades-long legal tussle. Now the battle's come to Manhattan. The estate of treasure hunter Rogelio Roger Rojas is suing Imelda Marcos, the widow of infamous former Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos, for more than $25 million. So, it's a long story, but in 71, Rojas found this Buddha, okay? He was in a tunnel network in the Philippines, and the claim was he found Yamashita's treasure, which was a stash that was valued at $22 billion at the time. In addition to the 1-ton gold statue of Buddha, the treasure included beer case-sized boxes of other gold and oodles of uncut diamonds, all plundered by Japanese troops during the war. Yamashita could never reclaim it. He was convicted of war crimes and hanged by the Americans in 1946. But Rojas' triumph at his discovery was short-lived. He claimed to have been captured, tortured, and robbed of the treasure by then dictator Marcos. Over the next decades, the Indiana Jones-worthy tale became more of a courtroom drama, with Rojas filing a suit against Marcos and his wife in 1988 in Hawaii over the theft. The suit outlived both Ferdinand, who died in 1989, and Rojas, who passed away in 1993. What I had heard about Rojas, by the way, was he died the night before the trial of that particular trial. So, was he taken out? Maybe. We don't know that yet, but there's the statue right here. And you can see that it's a huge statue. I mean, if that's solid gold, that's worth a whole lot of money. What you're starting to realize is the Marcoses were rich way before anybody realized, because that gold transaction between the Vatican and the Tallano family was huge. And what did they use that gold for? Or was the family hiding that gold in the Vatican because it was a safe place and they knew the war was coming, and, the Philippines, knew what was coming, right? They knew the Japanese were coming for them, I would think. And they would, I would assume, want to secure a lot of that gold to make sure that the Japanese don't get a hold of it. So this ruling was overturned. Rojas never got the Buddha, and I don't know what happened to it, but it looks like it's still, it's in the estate somewhere. Now, Imelda only coughed up $1.4 million of this sum, so Rojas' daughter is still filing another suit now to try to get the balance of the money that they're owed, $25 million. So, now that is worth a lot more money now, but so another interesting thing is, if you go back, a woman was caught in 2012, I believe it was, trying to sell a Monet painting that they realized was part of Imelda Marcos' art collection. And that collection, by the way, is, I believe, 300 paintings, 146 paintings. She was also found to have another 3 famous artworks in her possession. She was charged with illegally selling a Monet painting. She was also found to have another 3 famous artworks in her possession. The commission admitted that all 4 were on a list of 146 paintings once owned by the Marcoses, which they had not been able to track down. So this is about her shoes. But I think she has somewhere in between $600 million in Swiss bank accounts, some of that being in New York. Ruby and diamond tiara at $8 million. She has they have a lot of money from that gold that's not, on the books. And if you look at Imelda Marcos, she has huge gold books with just all these different assets. And plus, these artworks could be worth quite a bit of money. Now you see that the Marcoses are coming back into power now. So going on to this next part of the story. At some point, and I forgot the year, but I'll get it for you, you can see that the Philippines was rocked again when the administration of Benigno Aquino III is being accused of illegally shipping out 3,500 metric tons of 99.999% pure gold with an estimated value of $141 billion out of Banco Central Filipinas vault. This is January 16th, 2017. That amount of gold was used to back up the printing of $3 trillion US paper currency early last year, but for whose benefit? So how are they printing US dollar paper currency, or who is printing it? Because I don't think the Philippines is. So what's going on here, right? That's $3 trillion of this gold. All the personalities allegedly involved are denying participation, saying that the documents pressed so far are spurious. However, the Transnational Organized Crime Intelligence Group, TAOC-IG, investigating the illegal shipment during the previous administration, strongly disagrees. One witness under their custody claims that part of the said hoard are now in Spain. Nevertheless, more central bank insiders are ready to supply additional evidence and stand as direct witnesses to the crime. Let's listen to this.
Former President Noynoy Aquino faces yet additional criminal complaints. Plunder and graft charges were filed before the Office of the Ombudsman against Aquino and 6 others in connection with the alleged illegal shipment of $141 billion worth of gold bars to Thailand. The charges were filed by the Integrated Bar of the Philippines member Fernando Perito and former Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas examiner Rogelio Cantoria. Aside from the former president, also charged were former Justice Secretary, now Senator Leila de Lima, former DILG Secretary Mar Rojas, Senator Franklin Drilon, BSP Governor Amando Titanco Jr., former Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima, and Treasury Department Chief Dealer Lorelei Fernandez. The complainant said the 3,500 metric tons of illegally shipped gold bars, which came from the BSP, were intercepted in the Union Bank of Switzerland in December 2014.
So that was intercepted in the Bank of Switzerland. So now they know something's going on. Somebody either in the family is moving this money around, this gold, from the same bank that you see was mentioned earlier in the transaction that became that bank where all that gold was held. So the interesting part is what's peculiar about it is this gold smuggling it's done through the Centennial Energy Thailand Company Limited. What is an energy company has to do with gold or any other sovereign assets for that matter, other than masking their true ownership and the intended recipient? So that's another aspect of it. And we have here Aquino and 6 others face plunder over illegal shipment. January 7, 2017. Plunder and graft charges were filed before the Office of the Ombudsman on Friday against former President Benigno Aquino III and 6 others in connection with the alleged illegal shipment of $141 billion US dollars worth of gold bars to Thailand. The Integrated Bar of the Philippines member, lawyer Fernando Perito, and former Bank Central NG Pilipinas examiner Rogelio Cantoria filed the plunder and graft complaints against Aquino, former Department of Justice DOJ Secretary and now Senator Leila de Lima, former Department of Interior and Local Government DILG Secretary Manuel Rojas II, there's the name again, and Senator Franklin Drillon. So Manuel Rojas II, this is somebody connected with that family again, possibly, right? The Rojas clan. So we see that there's members of this family that are, it appears, trying to move some of this gold to out of the country for some reason that we don't know yet. And I'm assuming that they're investigating that still. So you can see there's a lot of off-market gold. That's my point. There's a lot of off-market gold. Here's another something I found. So this is some backstory. The topic about the Marcos gold is very controversial and it could ignite a heated argument. So for this reason, I would try to avoid discussing the political side. The other post we discussed about the Marcos wealth as the Yamashita treasures. However, there is another different side of the story that suddenly surfaced. According to an article, there was an empire known as Srivijayan Majapahit way back in the old days, particularly during the Spanish regime. It was claimed that the empire were able to collect an incredible amount of gold throughout their 900 years of glorious reign. Their people had probably worked so hard in the mines for their entire lives collecting such amounts of gold. During the Spaniard regime, somewhere in the year 1866 to 1898, there was a prince named Julian Macleod Tallano, who was the title holder of all nations of the Philippines. The Tallano royal family, quote-unquote, had a good relationship with the Pope of the Vatican. So in 1934, the Vatican and the Tallano family made an agreement to lend gold to the Pope. The gold lent was 640,000 metric tons. The borrowed gold was returned after the end of the Second World War, which took place in Manila. It was received by Manuel Acuna Rojas, who was a relative of the Tallano clan. Of course, there were two witnesses to prove that the gold was paid, Bishop Enrique Sopra Pena Sr. and attorney Lorenzo Tanada. But the transaction may not have been carried out successfully without the help of two people. They were Jose Antonio Diaz and attorney Ferdinand Marcos. Because of their help in facilitating this transaction, they were rewarded a large amount of 30% commission. This equates to 192,000 tons of gold. At this time, this gold is worth $4 trillion, which is worth more now. So that's part of it. So we see that Marcos was actually rich way before people realized because of this massive transaction. And there's obviously a lot of this gold fell through the cracks. And if you add it up between the Yamashita gold, the Vatican off-ledger gold that's held, and there's large amounts of gold held by certain very old Chinese families, like the Dragon family and stuff like that. Different families in China, Li family. So there's a lot of gold out there, and the Philippines is actually an incredibly rich country, but of course they're not sharing the wealth, right? It would be such a wonderful place to live in the Philippines if it's the richest country in the world. However, it's currently labeled as a third world country with struggling economy. So I think what's going to happen is a lot of this Marcos gold is going to be repatriated at some point, and even people in the family have said that they want to, some of his children, I believe, want to return this gold. So we'll see. But you can see there's 400,000 metric tons of gold that are being held by the Central Bank of the Philippines, while there's 200,000 metric tons of gold deposited in the Union Bank of Switzerland. The rest of the gold stored in various other banks in the Philippines. But he put a special trust under this account, and the trust is managed by a certain person named Wolfgang Strutt, German banker lawyer, and he resides in the Philippines. So we'll have to see how this all plays out. It looks like Marcos had a lot of gold, and on top of that, did he find the Yamashita gold hoard? That's the question, and it appears that he did, because this gentleman from the family maybe had knowledge of the tunnel systems or where some of this stuff was, and he had found some of it, and that was the rumor anyway. and he had been fighting in court with the family, and of course, I believe right before that case against Marcos was going to go to court, he passed away, maybe under dubious circumstances. We're not sure. So you can see there's a lot of money in play here. This gold, if it ever comes out, all these different amounts of gold into the world, uh, it could easily fund everything we're trying to do. So I hope that was a good, first use of this program. I hope it went well, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. And let's see how this all plays out with this off-ledger gold, because I think there's a lot more money in the world than we're realizing. So with that, I hope you're well, and talk soon. Peace.